Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, and welcome to a very special preview of a trio of stakes races taking place at Tampa Bay Downs this Saturday. I'm going to be joined in a moment by Acacia Clement and Paul Duca to talk about these three races, the Pasco, the Gasparilla, the Wayward Lass. Remember, last year we saw a horse like Danno win the Pasco, go on to win the Grade 1 Woody Stevens, be a really great horse, that New Jersey bred. So excited to see who we get out of this year's crop in that race. But listen, before we get into that, make sure to press that like and subscribe button today on NYRA Bets YouTube. We have race previews like this one, full card analyses like Capping the Card, which is up for this weekend at Aqueduct. We also next week are going to start a recurring show on the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks with myself and my colleague Kaylee Shapiro. We have a lot of other great content, handicapping and betting tutorials, and so much more. All right. Well, like I said, we're going to be talking about Tampa Bay Downs this weekend. And that used to be in my old neck of the woods. I used to live down in Lakeland. Head over to Tampa Bay Downs. It's a great track. If you're ever in the area, make sure to check it out. And one person who is going to be on track this weekend and who has been suffering through an unseasonably cold Florida right now is one Acacia Clement. Acacia, thank you so much for joining. And, you've been dealing with winter weather as well. It seems like you've been on the East Coast.
Hey, Matthew. Yes, I know. I really cannot complain, especially when we bring Paul in and what you guys are going through with the weather there. But we just came from Ocala where it was like 25, 30 in the mornings. So it's really cold down here, too, for Florida standards. But
Yes.
my little sweater. But in the 60s this weekend at Tampa. And hopefully we'll have a good day. The card came up really, really fun, actually. So really looking forward to being there. We'll be on America's Day at the races starting at 1:30. 1:30 to 5. So hope you'll join us. And I'm excited to be there. Be there on Sunday as well for America's Day at the races coverage with all the Oakland cancellations and the weather around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the weather's been crazy. Obviously, we also thinking about all of our friends out in California dealing with the wildfires out there near Santa Anita. So it just, whether it's the winter weather or that, it just feels like there's so much going on. Now, listen, you and I might be dealing with cold. Okay, that admittedly. There's a guy who's dealing with a lot of snow as well. That is our good friend, Paul Duca. Paul, I hope you're not snowed in down in Hot Springs, Arkansas, but you're dealing with a lot of white stuff down there. And the Southerners and the Arkansas folks are not necessarily used to this type of weather.
No, listen, it snowed a considerable amount. I want to say it got up to about 5 or 6 inches. And the thing about here, a lot of people don't realize that it is a national park. It's a 13-mile radius of a national park. So you can't use any salt or anything chemical on any of the roads or the racetrack. So you'll see a lot of tracks run over frozen racetracks. You just can't. And so when you drive outside right now, it's like playing Frogger. So it's probably not a good idea. I would stay inside. I tried to order some DoorDash and some Uber Eats last night, and I don't think any of the drivers were having it. So I stacked up with my lean cuisines because, I'm watching my figure and
of course
my Red Bulls. So I'm good to go. We're good.
There you go. Paul, I got my Diet Mountain Dew. I'm right there with you. We gotta stay. Yeah, poor Acacia's like, who are these guys that are doing this?
I love it. No, I've got my giant
oh my God,
basic girl water bottle. Yeah.
It's still not bigger than Miggs. Yours is as big as your head. I think Miggs is as big as his whole body.
It's huge. I know. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
I love it. Listen, this is going to be a fun little preview that we got going on this weekend. Obviously, with cancellation of Oaklawn due to the weather, we canceled yesterday, or on Thursday, I should say, at Aqueduct due to the wind. The good news, the wind has died down. It's still cold, but we're going to have a full day of racing Friday, Saturday, Sunday up here at Aqueduct. But like I said, we're going to be talking about Tampa Bay Downs. 3 stakes races. Acacia, you brought it up. The card came up really solid, throughout the entire day, but these 3 stakes races in particular, the Pasco, the Gasparilla, the Wayward Lass, I mentioned in the intro how, kind of cool it was that Danno won this race last year and went on to obviously a really big year. But let's dive into this Pasco Stakes. And it's only a 6-horse field, but it feels like, again, we have some really promising runners for 2025. Certainly the 3 horses on the outside, rookie card, Naughty Rascal, Owen Almighty, your top 3 choices on the board. Acacia, I'm interested. Owen Almighty, 4 to 5 on the morning line. Do you see this horse as a single and just that much of a lock, or do you think maybe there's a chance to beat a horse like this coming out of the Kentucky Jockey Club?
Yeah, I mean, look, he might just be a class above, but I mean, I think rookie card is pretty good.
Yeah.
I certainly, and especially because I think that he has a pace advantage. Now, the good thing about Owen Almighty is that he's not slow; he has tactical speed. Irad Ortiz is not going to let him be in a bad position, and especially in a short field. But I would imagine rookie card is going to come out hustling there, try to go on the front end and take them every way. And while, yes, it's kind of a natural progression, Owen Almighty hasn't run since September. He's had a little bit longer of a layoff. And to be fair, nobody was beating Jonathan's Way that day in the Iroquois, but he did put some separation against the rest of the field, which I appreciated. He's a very good horse. And typically throughout the winter in Florida, you see it a lot at Gulfstream. Brian Lynch's barn really heats up this time of year. Do not discredit that. And you even look at Tampa, he's 2 for 2 here. He sent a horse in and won the inaugural at the end of the season, at the end of the year at Tampa Bay Downs. So he's brought the right horses over. His horse might just be better. I'm excited to see them all in the paddock, but I think it makes for a really interesting matchup.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I misspoke earlier about the Kentucky Jockey Club. What I meant was that Owen Almighty, of course, faced Jonathan's Way, who came back to run second in the Kentucky Jockey Club, but had faced him in that Iroquois earlier. Paul, interested in your thoughts on this. Again, a short field, but some really intriguing runners in this one.
Well, I agree with Acacia a lot on Owen Almighty. I mean, I think Brian Lynch is one of the most underrated trainers that we have out there. He just doesn't have a ton of stock, but he's a heck of a trainer. And, for this horse to win back-to-back races, I mean, I was more impressed with his second race when he won the juvenile. He won by 4.5 lengths. I mean, a couple of those horses, and Politically Correct is a pretty good horse. That's going to be the horse to beat because Brian will have the horse ready. They're going 7 furlongs. This horse has gone a 1-turn mile before. It is a little tough. Listen, I got my rookie card out right here. So I don't even know. I think I got freckles on this. Acacia was laughing earlier. Freckles on my. I had to be like 18.
Never mind the freckles. Look at those eyebrows.
Oh yeah, those are the Italian eyebrows before I got them tamed, Acacia. Okay. Okay. All right. So rookie card. I agree with you. I think rookie card is very talented. And you know what? Maybe a year from now, we might look at this and go, okay, rookie card might be the most talented out of all of them. But I want to go to a horse like Naughty Rascal because the horse that won here, the Smarty Jones, was a horse kind of like him, Naughty Rascal, a horse that's won over a sloppy racetrack at Gulfstream, won over a fast racetrack, won over turf without the blinkers, and then came to Tampa and ran a bang-up second. So it just seems like the 5 Naughty Rascal for Gerald Bennett, not a Florida bred from a sire I haven't really heard of out of a Smarty Jones mare, and a horse that just seems like runs on anything. So I do think the 5, the 6 is the class of the field, but I think the 4 and 5 could give them something to handle. But I do think Naughty Rascal will run better than it looks. And you're not going to get 5-2 because they're going to bet Irad and Brian Lynch down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Brian Lynch, I'm glad both of you brought that up. A trainer that you got to take seriously, particularly at Tampa Bay Downs these last few years. It does seem like he always has big runners in these types of races. Yeah, rookie card's an interesting horse because you go back through his running lines and my Lord, he's running against some really outstanding horses in his generation. I mean, he's run against Tip Top Thomas in debut, but Key Waden as well. And the 4th place horse in that race was Sovereignty, who comes back to win the Street Sense for Bill Mott. Then, then last time out, he faces Treaty of Rome, who wins his next start and then runs second in the Mucho Macho Man just last weekend at Guns Loaded. So even though he's never faced winners, he's faced arguably some of the best competition in this group. Paul, I'm glad you made that point about Naughty Rascal. So impressive to see a young horse win sprinting on the dirt and going 2 turns on the turf already against stakes competition. So a really interesting horse there. And I'm going to probably try to beat Owen Almighty with rookie card as my top selection, just because, Acacia, going back to what you said at the top, he just has a pace advantage in this race. It doesn't seem like anybody else is really going to be able to go. The question is whether he can get the 7 furlongs, as we've seen him tire a little bit late in some of his races. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. But really fun race to start this one off. I do think the number 2, Very Bold, is a long shot if you're looking to try to get a price in that top maybe 2 or 3. It might be an interesting horse for Owen Hardy, who we've seen have some success certainly up here with a horse like Poster, a couple of races back. But that's one that has very muddied running lines. The turf and the synthetic, I'm willing to toss. I just never like Union Rags on those surfaces. You look at what this horse did on the dirt and got off to a really bad start, that first effort on the dirt, but then that other effort, which admittedly was over a wet track, really got off a lot better, sat a much more productive trip. If this horse can get out of the gate and sit in a productive spot, I don't know, could maybe make a move forward at a little bit of a price. But
by the way, Matthew, you'd mentioned a horse named Sovereignty, who rookie card had lost to.
Yeah.
I would make a $50 wager that horse gets in the Kentucky Derby gate.
He is very talented.
He's a monster. Yeah. I actually, if I had a choice right now, if somebody put a gun to my head and said who wins the Derby, I'd say Sovereignty. I think he's that talented. And I know Bill Motz knows he's sitting on a kick of dynamite.
Yeah. He is a beautiful horse too.
Yeah.
So impressed by him. I completely agree.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kaylee Shapiro, my colleague here at NYRA Bets, absolutely loves Sovereignty as well.
Yeah,
she loves every Bill Mott horse, but she really loves Sovereignty. And so, but yeah, that's a really, really good horse. And I think we're gonna look back at that race of Tip Top Thomas, Rookie Card, and Sovereignty, and that's one of those Saratoga races where you go, wow, that was something else. Yeah. You get a couple of really live runners. But let's head to the Gasparilla for our next race, which is race 5 on the card. Again, 7 furlongs, this one for the fillies. And Acacia, I'll start off with you again. A little bit more of a similar dynamic in terms of maybe the top 2 or top 3. You have a horse like Winning You're In, Mrs. Worldwide, Dancing Magic, all underneath 3 to 1 or lower. Couple of Florida breds in this race, which I think is interesting. We've seen a lot of Florida breds kind of make some noise. You saw a horse like Rated by Merit, who seems to be on the Derby Trail down in South Florida at Gulfstream Park. And here you have a couple of the top choices being Florida breds. I love seeing that. I love seeing the Florida breds have their day, but interested how you saw this race playing out in the Gasparilla.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And funny enough, it's his first time running in Florida, but Rookie Card's also a Florida bred as well in the last race. Yeah, which is it's kind of fun to see that how you wouldn't ordinarily pick it up. And I think that you see that with New York breds, Maryland breds, whatever, these breeding programs as they continue to strengthen, which is a testament to what the breeders are doing. But as far as Winning You're In, who is a filly who's coming out of those Florida bred races. And look, I get it. The try last time out going the mile and a 16th in the My Dear Girl, it's $300,000 in those Florida bred stakes for the 2-year-olds. You won the last one, you got to take a shot. I completely understand if you have a horse like that and wanting to take a try with it. But I think going back to a sprint, she really will appreciate going shorter. She was dominant 2 starts back when winning in that Susan's Girl division, the Florida Sire Stakes. Again, $200,000 is a lot of money for those races. And so one thing that I do think is encouraging, I know it was in August at Gulfstream. She did win against Open Company. I think this will be one of the tougher tests that she'll have so far. But I think that drawn outside, tactical speed, going shorter should bode well for her. And then you've got Brian Lynch once again with Mrs. Worldwide, who's a horse that I'm really interested in. She's certainly one who lately has kind of been trending in the right direction, whereas Winning You're In, her figures recently haven't quite been as quick as we saw a little bit earlier in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has a couple of those wins against Open Company. And yeah, a really interesting horse there. As a pit bull fan, I love Mr. Worldwide, Mr. 305. So listen, Mr. Worldwide, sure, sign me up. But listen, it's an interesting race because you have some horses. You have a horse like Lynn's Milky Way, which is 6 to 1, coming out of a dominating win, admittedly against Maiden Claiming Company. You have a horse like Dancing Magic as well, 3 to 1, who lost to Mrs. Worldwide last time out, but has always run pretty honest efforts, and but is stretching out now to 6 furlongs the first time. Paul, interested kind of how you saw this race playing out a little bit.
Well, Winning You're In's an interesting horse. For me, you have to be able to draw a line through the last race, right? Like It's just like anything else, you could win 4 games in a row in basketball and they get blown out by 60. It's just a loss. So sometimes I think a lot of handicappers got to be able to forgive a race. Now, I forgive the race, and here's the reason why. This horse has gone 45 and change before sprinting. They went 47 last time out, and Miguel Vasquez decided, let's rate. That was just being overconfident with the horse.
Yeah.
Horse should have been in front by about 2 or 3 by himself, and then take your chances. So what ended up happening, now you're going a little bit longer. You're going against horses that have gone long, and he just kind of petered out. Now, the number concerning, but he kind of just wrapped them up. Those type of horses are really tough to kind of gauge what happens to them after a loss like that. But you can go to like Mrs. Worldwide. You know, she basically got eased, had one bad race, and then boom, she's rattled off 2 in a row. So is it going to take effect on winning you're in for one race and then maybe take her another race to get back to sprinting? That would be my one concern. Obviously, Carlos David's a very good trainer, and Brian Lynch, like Acacia was saying, I just thought it was between those 2 fillies on a class, level. You can look at Lynn's Milky Way 1/11. You just really don't know who's in that race. I do think the long shot in the race is the 5. Gary Contest is another cliche, because the horse won first time out. Gary put the horse in the Frizette because he's out of his mind. And then they went into the Sandpiper. He was 3-1 against Mrs. Worldwide. She throws in a clunker off a layoff. Watch her fire off a clunker. And I think she's maybe the other horse in here because she's shown that she can run the same numbers as a 6 and 7.
Yeah, and she's put in some nice works leading up to this race, coming out of that poor effort in the Sandpiper. And the interesting thing about this race is on class, I agree, the 6 and 7 are clearly the class, but they don't have a massive speed figure advantage over a lot of these other horses. So I do think maybe there is the opportunity for a horse like another Cliche to really run back to that maiden effort, which would absolutely be, from a speed figure standpoint, good enough to compete in this spot. So there's not a huge advantage there, but you're going to see that big gap, I think, in the odds. These 2 are going to take a vast majority of the money. And we should mention IRAD up on Mrs. Worldwide. So you combine IRAD with Brian Lynch, and especially if Brian wins the race before, then you can imagine everybody's going to start betting this horse, or if IRAD wins the race before. So we see that at Gulfstream Park, we see that up here, we see the IRAD effect of his horses taking a lot of money. So will be interesting to see how this one plays out come post time. Let's head to the final of these 3, which is actually race number 7 on the card, part of your late pick 5. And this is the Wayward Lass Stakes, going 1 mile and a 16th for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And this is a 9-horse field, a little bit more of an interesting dynamic. You do have the Rudy Brissett horse, the number 1, as your 2-1 favorite. Interested, Acacia, in kind of how you saw this one playing out and kind of where your eyes took you and kind of what you thought about this field.
Yeah, it's a really tough race, actually. As you mentioned, the favorites, Penoir to the inside, who I thought, it was the wet track last time out, maybe something that she just didn't really handle. We did see her win the 1 1/8 mile, 2 starts back. Also, it was kind of right into the deep end last time. She was having to face really tough competition for her class that day. So she's arguably the quote-unquote horse to beat, and she should be aggressively handled from the inside. Certainly distance not going to be a problem with her, but there's a couple at some prices that I have some interest in. I think Abundancia is going to run better. She was 3rd last time out to Free Like a Girl out of town. And Paul, you know that filly really well. And she's just been such a cool overachiever. And she's been in great form recently as well. I think that we're going to see a better performance from Abundancia coming in here. And I think that she might kind of get discredited a little bit because she has kind of some gaps in her form, some trainer changes, going around to different tracks as she comes back. But I think that she has some ability, and we'll see a better performance today. And I kind of want to give another chance to America's Vow on the outside. It's a little bit of the case of what Paul was talking about in the last race, where you see a horse go right into the deep end. This is one who won an allowance at Saratoga, and then she had to run on the Alabama. And then she just didn't really kind of get back on track since then. She's been given a layoff. She hasn't run since October. She's coming in fresh. Tim Ham, typically, it's been a little bit quiet lately, but typically really fires and brings some good horses to run at Tampa. And if she's a generous price, she's one that I'd kind of want to take a little bit of a look at to see her kicking off her year and hopefully trending in the right direction to get back on track.
Yeah, it's an interesting long shot to play. And I think that's a really good point, that coming out of those, kind of tough efforts there, and you, like you said, kind of going in a little bit of deeper company, now getting that freshening couple of bullets leading up to this race. So certainly seems like Tim has this horse, maybe ready to go in this particular spot, that outside post position. Maybe the horse shows a little bit of speed to try to save some ground coming from the outside. But yeah, Abundancia was another one I looked at. Victor Barboza Jr., kind of a trainer I follow pretty regularly down in Gulfstream in Tampa. So not surprising to see his horses run well, I think. And always, yeah, it feels like a much more wide open race. Paul, interested in your thoughts in this one and kind of where you might be looking at a price or kind of other thoughts.
This is a tough race. I mean, This is good luck, Acacia. And thank you for announcing Penoir, because Matthew and I did not want to even touch that.
Yeah, but, I just said the Rudy Percent horse. And
exactly.
I was letting Acacia.
I appreciate that. And in a bunch of you were talking about Free Like a Girl. She's a millionaire Louisiana bred for Chasey Palmier Deauville, and the horse just is a really cool horse for being a Louisiana bred. So I started looking at this race, and you look, and there's a lot of horses in here that haven't had a lot of breaks. So I do think the 3 in here has a big shot, because I do like a little bit of the layoff, spaced out races a little bit, because if you look like a horse like the 1, Penoir, hasn't been off for like 8 or some odd races. There's another horse in here, the 8 horse in here, Little Jamie, who's going to take a lot of money. Poor horse hasn't had a break, 12 starts. I mean, just keeps on rolling. So, I understand she's a 4-year-old filly. I also think the Tim Ham horse is interesting on the outside. There's just so many ways you can go in here. I ended up landing on, who did I have? I think the 5 is interesting, Literate. Yeah. But again, I hate getting fooled by that one dirt race. Everybody always comes, the horse ran good on that one dirt race, and you kind of get fooled a little bit. I kind of like the 4 in here, American Retro, and I'll tell you why. I don't, Antonio Gallardo, I'm not a fan of Antonio sometimes. He can be wide. He can do a lot of different things. But this is a horse that they're going back to the dirt with, and been obviously training unbelievable. Got a bullet drill at Prairie Meadows for Ian Wilkes. The dirt races were just fine. I don't know why they went to the turf, but especially after Kentucky Downs. But then they won at Gulfstream. Average race against Neon Beach, and was favored at Kentucky at Churchill Downs in Kentucky. But this horse won some 7 furlong ranks against Little Prankster, some decent little horses. So I understand that may have to take a step, but I like the lightly raced. I know she's 5, but I like the lightly raced horse. I'll take a shot with her and Ian Wilkes at 10-1. Ian's barn has been going pretty well. I do love that he worked her on the dirt, then he worked her on the turf, then he worked her on the dirt again. I think he's just trying to figure out where she is, and I think she likes both.
Yeah, Paul, it's really interesting. That was a horse that I had my eye on as well in terms of American Retro. I also like those kind of lightly raced horses that I don't know if they've run their best race yet sometimes, and you're always going to get a little bit more of a price on those types. And yeah, it does seem like she can handle both, that, she has no problem on either surface, and she works well, obviously, on both surfaces too, and she runs well on both surfaces. So, going back to the dirt, we'll see. It's going to be a little bit of a test on switching off Lasix for the first time, but, she's one who certainly at 10-1 provides generous price there in this particular spot. And yeah, it's interesting about Literate, that one dirt effort not being particularly good, but then the horse goes to the bench for well over a year after that race. So, something probably just went wrong in that race, and the horse maybe needed a little bit more time off. So if this horse can somehow translate those figures and that form from the synthetic and turf to the dirt, then maybe there's something there for C2 Stables as the ownership group of that one. But yeah, this is a tricky sequence in the late pick 5 here, and going to be a lot of fun though. Can't wait to see these great races, and can't wait to just like live vicariously through everybody in attendance down there while Paul's digging out and I'm shivering away at Aqueduct. So yeah.
By the way, you made a good point, Matthew. I just wanted to reiterate, like, okay, the one is the horse to beat in there, Penwar, by far. Let's not forget that. Okay. But you made a good point. The best races on that horse are Lasix. I think a lot of people need to pay attention to that. Same here at Oaklawn. Yeah. That some horses run better on Lasix. So pay attention to that, because Penwar's races are way better with Lasix. Now, he might just still be the best. But there's some validity to that. Make sure when you look into these stakes races now, when these horses are on Lasix or off Lasix, at least I look at that. Acacia, I know you do too as well. And you know, it can affect, it can go either way. It's a guessing game, I know that, but sometimes you can see it dead on paper when the horse is better or not. So
yeah, absolutely. So Acacia, Paul, thank you again both for joining me. Acacia, remind everybody where they're going to be able to see you this weekend on America's Day at the races down in Tampa.
Yeah, start at 1:30 to 4 on FS1 and then 4 to 5 on FS2. So it'll be a fun day. We have the stakes that we talked about. There's a good maiden special weight in there in between too. And in the 9th race, kind of fun, Nutella Fella, grade 1 hopeful winner, making his first start of the year. We haven't seen him since last summer at Saratoga when he tried the Jerkins. So I'm excited to see him back. That'll be kind of a fun story. And Junior Alvarado's there and going to ride him. I remember after they won the hopeful, Nutella actually sent Junior like a giant thing of Nutella, and I was like, well, that's pretty good. That's a nice little perk, you know, for winning the race. So we'll see if he brings any Nutella to the track.
I know she's had a Nutella pizza before. She's had it before.
Oh, so good. So good. Yeah.
I do love Nutella.
Hey, Nutella, call me. Yeah.
Listen, Paulie and I are hawking energy drinks. You're talking about, you know, getting some Nutella sponsorship.
I'm eating lasagna lean cuisines right now, Matthew. I'm stuck.
Listen, if you're watching, folks, we're open to sponsorships here on the NYRA Bets YouTube channel. So, like, we will gladly hawk your products.
Red Bull, anybody?
But yeah, exactly, we're right there. So, Paul, you're still gonna be doing a little bit of stuff this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm still
remotely.
I actually am I don't want to step on Andy's toes. God forbid that. We don't want to step on Andy's toes. But I will tweet out my full card selections for the next 3 days at Aqueduct, because I just like to fire at horses. Acacia knows that.
Yeah.
So a little bit of both. And you know what? I have not played Tampa this year. So going over this card, I actually do think this late pick 5 is going to be nice there on Saturday. Yeah. So I will be playing Saturday at Tampa.
Awesome. No, it's I think a really good card. Tampa's a lot of fun. It's a great track, and it's a circuit where it's funny, Paul, when you mentioned about like the jockeys going wide. I can't tell you the number of times I've watched races and I'm like, how wide are we going to go around those turns? Like, how are we going to do this? Like, guys, we got to save ground. But it is, but it's interesting. You have Junior coming in, Irad coming in. Interestingly enough, you have Dylan Davis actually coming up here again for the weekend up in Aqueduct after spending some time down at Gulfstream Park. So it's interesting to see those guys come around and all of that. So again, Acacia, Paul, thank you so very much for joining. And thank you all for watching this episode on NYRA Bets YouTube. Make sure to press that like button and subscribe today. For Paul Duca and Acacia Clement, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it's now post time.